Welcome. I'm sorry. I was just getting ready for football season. It's football season, right? Who cares about that crap? Put that back at the MoMA. We've got week 1 same game parlay action for you on Thursday night. It's how long the summer has been. I'm down to reading books about art in museums. So thank anybody and everybody, whoever you pray to out there, thank them for the NFL back in full effect. Yes, we're going to tell you about what you can make at DraftKings. There's this awesome offer that's still there. It's at the bottom of the screen. But let's build the same game parlay. Oh, by the way, we're still going to supersize the shit out of this. So don't worry. We'll build the baseline same game. That's what I do, right? We build the baseline same game parlay. And from there, we supersize the shit out of it. Now, in this case, go to DK, make sure that the same game parlay is active. We're also going to show you, we're going to incorporate Odd Shoppers player prop bets to build the third leg for this. Let's just start out with the first one. All right, Rams win the game. I'm not even taking the 2.5. I don't need the 2.5. I'll take the Rams outright to win this. Sean McVay is 5-0 straight up in home openers. We've seen year in and year out, no matter what happens with his Rams team, winning or losing at the very last game of the season, mind you, playoff season, not regular season, his teams have come back and won the season open. 5-0 straight up in season openers. And this line initially had the Rams as the home favorite. It has been bet into oblivion now that the Bills are nearly a 3-point road favorite. Some of that has to do with the concern regarding Matthew Stafford. I understand that. There's also just this general belief now that the Buffalo Bills are the team to beat, really maybe across the board, with Kansas City kind of taking a step back. So let us take the Rams at plus 110 to win this sucker outright. Now, I also want to add to this the first half. And I'm not looking at the spread here, more so as I'm looking at the total. If we look at where the baseline number is, it's 24.5 on DK. That's the minus 110, minus 130, 25.5, minus 105, minus 135. This range right here is about the flat number that DraftKings is offering as the first half total on the same game parlay. I want to push it. I think we can get to 26.5. I think we can get to 27 points. 27. Why are we not going 28, Shander? That's a real 4-touchdown score possibility because I don't want to risk anything. Missed extra point, failed attempt for 2, what have you. These are now realities in NFL games. And you have 2 coaches that are a little out there, especially the home coach. So we'll go over 26.5 as far as the first half total. So now we're locked in with the Rams on the money line, and we have over 26.5 to get to 27 first half points. That's the first 2 legs of our same game parlay here for Thursday Night Football. Let's head on over to Odd Shopper before we supersize the shit out of this sucker. Now, I'm using in Pennsylvania.
How does he see that?
I don't know. I truly don't. We can ask him. Oh, he said. Love this show, man.
All right. Yeah, we're back. It is the marathon matchup show for NFL. Contrary to what someone was saying in chat, yes, this is an NFL show. It says it's an NFL show. And Larry, we're still happy to have you here. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Anyway, you guys know what this is. It's the marathon matchup show. Quite frankly, if you're a busy person, right? Maybe you got a family, a wife and kids, a husband and kids to take care of, some crazy pets, who knows, a demanding job, and you only have one time every week to really sit down and prep for the NFL week that lies ahead. Well, this is it right here. I suggest you watch all of our shit, but if you can't, this is it. The marathon matchup show right here on the Stokastic YouTube channel. I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D. Hit me up and follow my man, Draftaholic, Matt Savoca. We're back, baby. Here we go. 13 games to get us started.
We are back. Finally. It was this time 2 years ago when we were having the first version of this game-by-game NFL strategy show. It wasn't the marathon matchups show then, but it quickly turned into something really, really cool. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you guys are here. I'm happy football's here. We have a great set of games. We have a great game tonight as well. And we got a ton to talk about. We're going to try to hit on every fantasy relevant player, every option that you got, and you're going to hear some advanced stats as well because I tend to bring them. But we're going to have a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us. Let's dig in.
As Rich F said, time for everybody's favorite drinking game. We all know what that means. Also, maybe my favorite part of this show is that chat has taken it upon themselves over the years to, say what they've packed or what they have in store. People talking about having, where was it? Jeremy, this episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. That's not true, but it should be.
Oh, yeah.
St. Stephen, I made myself a few PB&Js and some jerky to get me through the show today. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, this is what it comes down to. My dumbass dumped out the pot of coffee that I made this morning, forgetting that this was coming up. And the backup Keurig, I ran out of K-Cups, which I have to get later. So I'm just on all natural fuel today, man. Not going to be fun.
Oh, no. We're going to hit him around an hour 5 in, and he's just going to start drooping.
Yeah.
We'll get through. No, we got it's open. Luckily, it's not week 11 or something. Like we're not in the thick of it. We got the new season energy still. But yeah, man, get your substances of choice, guys. Whatever that is to you, grab it. Sit back, relax. Let's dig in.
Crack open those MREs and let's go to work. Kyle B, time to start drinking alcohol. Not yet, man. We'll be there soon enough. I got a long day ahead of me doing a full slate breakdown on the Odd Shopper channel for bets, picks for every game. Check that out. You got Kajeski doing some incredible college football stuff along with Ben. We got so much football content, baseball still in full swing. And if you still haven't done your drafts or you're looking for who to start sit, Matt Kajeski, Nick Lepre over on our fantasy football channel got you plugged in and covered for literally everything. Best ball, drafts, season long, start, sit, dynasty, whatever it is. We're good to go. All right, let's go right now. First up, Matt, let's spare any more pleasant. Oh, no, sorry. Hit that thumbs up.
Yeah.
Gotta do it.
YouTube overlords, man.
Yep. The YouTube overlords watching down upon us with frowning faces. Please help us with the algorithm. Help us keep the lights on around here. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Only takes a second. All right. Kansas City at Arizona. We're going highest total to lowest total. Matt brought this up as a good idea last year, and I agree. It is a good idea. We'll go highest total to lowest total. So in the event that we're running late, not that would happen, we won't have to spend quite as much time on some of those final games. But Kansas City and Arizona, to me, is legitimately the one game that intrigues me the most, not just because of the total, but because between Tyreek Hill and, if you want to throw into a lesser extent, Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, you're vacating like 260 targets from last year. You bring in MVS, give him a juicy contract. You bring in Juju Smith-Schuster. You have Mecole Hardman going into like his however manyth year at this point, despite not really producing yet. And then you still have Travis Kelce. And you have Sky Moore, second-round pick from the 2022 draft. This team has a lot of different ways it could go in week one.
Yeah, they're going to be fine. Like, Patrick Mahomes trying to do fantasy analysis for us, right? Saying that, yeah, sorry, fantasy gamers, it's going to be a different guy every week. But guess what? He doesn't realize that he elevates his team from a fantasy perspective way more than the typical quarterback does. So even if you're the number 2 option in terms of opportunity value for Patrick Mahomes, you perform like most quarterbacks' number 1 option. If you're the number 3 option, it's the number 2 for most teams. You get what I'm saying here. So I don't really care all that much who's projected to be the number 3 on the totem pole or number 4, because the value of it is good enough. And so is the salary, right? Like Travis Kelce at 6,600. Like, we're going to be able to make this work, guys. This is so soft. And the target share, even if it's not 25%, it's down to 20%. That's still 20% of Patrick Mahomes' targets strategically used against an Arizona defense that is only mediocre pretty much across the board here. I do want to shout out Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who looks really, really good in our projections versus salary-based expectations. Just 5,400 right now on DraftKings. And even on our boom bust tool, he looks really, really strong in leverage score. I mean, this guy looks, in all of our stats and tools over on the Stokastic.com side, he's all systems go, just because of the scoring expectations for Kansas City. Even before we really dig into this, who's the wide receiver 1 situation, just play the obvious plays in the highest total game.
I don't think it has anything to do with them not being able to produce. That's not my concern. What I'm saying is, I don't know who behind Travis Kelce is going to be, the alpha receiver. Of course, now it looks like Juju, but is it definitively Juju Smith-Schuster? I don't know. I mean, if I'm playing a lot of lineups, right, or if you're playing a lot of lineups, I don't see why you wouldn't want to have a good amount of this Kansas City team sprinkled in throughout. I mean, like, MVS is not expensive. What's Valdez-Scantling? He's by the way,
3K. So 47K.
Yeah.
What did I read? 47.
If you're on DraftKings, like 4,700. Yeah. If you're in large field tournaments and there's no more Tyreek Hill and MVS is a legitimate deep threat, I don't see why you wouldn't want to have him sprinkled in the lineups or in lineups in general. Mecole Hardman even, doesn't look pretty, and he hasn't really produced in previous seasons. But all of these guys behind Kelce, obviously Juju is the one that's going to be getting the most ownership among all of these wide receivers. But the way I'm looking at it is, I just want as many pieces of this team that I can get. And they're also way easier to stack now than they were when you had to either go Kelce and Hill, and then you would have to play, a ton of cheap guys scattered throughout the rest of your lineup, or you would have to just roll the dice on one of Kelce and Hill. Now, if you want to play Kelce, he's not that expensive. Mahomes is, but then any other receivers you want, including Juju, who's only $600 more than MVS, slot into your lineups easily and allow you to do whatever you want.
Our top stacks tool over on Stokastic, if they just have a big old crush on the Kansas City Chiefs every single week. It's been like that for as long as we've been doing that show. And I'm sure one day, the way football goes, it won't be that way, but it won't be that way this week. They're number 1 in top stack ranking, number 1 in top stack value. And essentially what we're saying, what Laffy's been saying, and what I was saying earlier, is that all of these players are values compared to where their salary expects them to be. Juju, just a little bit. He's at wide receiver 27 in pricing over on DraftKings, but he's wide receiver 24 in our rankings. Same with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's wide receiver 45 in salary ranking, wide receiver 36 in hours, wide receiver 48 for Mecole Hardman in salary, wide receiver 38 in hours. Sky Moore, wide receiver 67 in ranking, wide receiver 56 in hours. You see a little bit of a trend there. So whoever you can piece in at whatever salary tier, whether it's 5,200, 4,600, 3,800, works for you, your first choice for that value play, that one-off play, should be one of these Chiefs.
Ryan, can we also talk about FanDuel as well, Laffy? I'm going to try. It's just, we have 13 games, man. It's difficult. I know a lot of these guys later in the week certainly will, and on Sunday we will. We'll do our best. Not easy, but not easy. Anyway, the other side of this game too, though, you have no DeAndre Hopkins. He's suspended. And outside of that, you're still looking at some moving pieces, because Zach Ertz seems like he's legitimately questionable. I think he probably plays, but he's still practicing only on a limited basis. Rondale Moore is good now, so that's good. He's off the injury report. He was on it previously. And you don't really have any, like Marquise Brown is your most proven option there. Aside from that, you're going to get a popular Rondale Moore and maybe Zach Ertz if he plays. And then you're talking about guys like, AJ Green, who's clearly in the twilight of his career.
So we are pretty neutral on Zach Ertz because he's just the tight end 10 in salary at 4,400 on DraftKings. But beyond that, we're taking a strong stand at Stokastic on the value of Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore looking like one of the best plays from a salary-based perspective. 4K flat. We have him at wide receiver 29 in our current rankings. Just an insane value there. And then Marquise Brown, get ready for this. We got him in the top 5 of wide receivers on the main slate at just 6,200. So even just looking at wide receiver 12 in terms of salary-based rankings, guys, in expected fantasy points, the opportunity value I like to bring up all the time, which is just targets, air yards, rushes, and all of them put on a scale that is easy to understand because we're always thinking in terms of fantasy points. He was 7th in the NFL in DraftKings expected fantasy points on the Baltimore offense. And now he gets an increased pass volume, a suspended DeAndre Hopkins, a questionable Zach Ertz, and really only Rondale Moore and AJ Green to compete with for targets. I think Marquise Brown could smash against a Kansas City defense that is only so-so on the secondary side.
Do you have any interest in James Conner?
The touches are going to be there, but there are salary values all over the place in week 1 where I don't really have to play a player who he got 5 spots below, worse than his salary-based expectations. He's still in the you can play him tier for me at 7K, and the game environment is good enough, but he's really a contrarian play and not one that I'm really targeting big time based on the higher salary here.
Anybody else from this game?
I'm fine with AJ Green. We didn't really mention him all that much, but I'm fine with him. It's not a terrible tournament play at 4,600. He's probably going to see a red zone target or 2, but the target ceiling's probably 6 or 7 targets.
All right. Well, no.
Did we mention CEH? Did we mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
You did, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Clayton said, Laffy, they still keeping your kid tied to a chair staring at a bush all day. Said, last year when you picked her up at daycare, she was locked in. What? I don't remember that. Did I ever say? I don't think I said. I don't ever remember saying that. Locked in. They got locks on the doors. They got to see who you are before you come in. I appreciate that. I don't know, man.
I don't remember that particular anecdote.
I feel like that's something I would remember. Unless I was just Joe. It's very possible I just made something up. I do that often, but I don't know. No, they take good care of it there. Thank you for the concern, though. Chargers hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. So this one to me is weird. You got a 52-point total, but the Chargers, whose secondary is, obviously expected to be very, very good this year, they got some issues because if JC Jackson's not playing, that's not great. You still have, of course, again, a good secondary, a good defense here. But when I look at this Las Vegas team, Devontae Adams is one of those guys that pretty much every week, even without Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, who we played with in college, is going to get a decent amount of ownership. Darren Waller, I think, benefits in this matchup considerably. I think there's a good spot for him. I wouldn't worry. I saw people talking about like the injury and everything, the hammy. I think a whole lot of that was just the fact that there were some under the table contract disputes, or that not under the table, but they were trying to suppress that a little bit. He hired a new agent, whatever.
Yep.
Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs. They do have some weapons on this team for sure. It could definitely evolve into a shootout, and the second highest total on the slate suggested it probably will.
So the only one that the projections are kind of out on right now is Hunter Renfrow. The 5,800 salary tag is a little bit steep We got him well below salary-based expectations. We got Darren Waller right at salary-based expectations, and I read the whole offseason saga as you did, Laffy. I think it was mostly contract, maybe just making sure he was 100% by season start. I think he's good to go. And Devontae Adams, wide receiver 1 in salary, wide receiver 1 in projection, wide receiver 1 in expected fantasy points. This is where you got to get him. I think he's a great tournament play, especially because people are going to see values all over the place, but not want to play it at that wide receiver 1 spot. I do think he has a chance to just do what he did as a Packer right away with Derek Carr, who he has chemistry with from his playing days in college. I think it should be absolutely fine. I'm definitely focusing much more on the receiving game. I don't think this running back core is going to produce a whole lot of fantasy relevant games because I am thinking they're going to bring over the running back by committee. We saw a lot in New England with Adam Gase there, or not Adam Gase. Oh my gosh. I'm just totally brain farted, but I'm not playing Josh Jacobs or Zamir White or Amir Abdullah in week 1 here in DFS.
Who are you trying to talk about?
I was trying to talk about the new coaching staff in Las Vegas, and I brought up Adam Gase. I don't know.
Josh
McDaniels, just deep-rooted, just trauma, somewhere deep-rooted. Just Adam Gase at the top of mine in week 1. No, that's not where we're going today.
Is there any priority for the Chargers when you've got – look, this team is going to be high-powered. They're going to score a lot of points. I wanted to pull this back up because you can actually see – there's some cool props out there. Not that I have interest in betting them, but you have, stuff where you can take a look at which team has the highest, the shortest odds to be the highest scoring team in the league this year. And I know that I know for a fact that the Bills are first. Yeah. Shortest odds plus 550. The Chargers are second in the league, tied with the Bucks at 8-1. So, yes, there's a lot of mouths to feed. Might not have really concentrated target shares, but as we've seen in the past, all of these guys are capable of producing. The question is, on a main slate where you have 13 games, what do you do with guys like Eckler? Again, a lot of high-priced running backs this week. With Keenan Allen, with Mike Williams. What do you do with those 3 guys in week 1?
They're certainly going to be relevant. Their expected fantasy points are incredibly high, especially Eckler looks really good in that metric. He's 4th in expected fantasy points looking at last season and 4th in salary. We've got him at running back 5 in our projections. In our latest run of simulations before the show, he's in the optimal lineup 9% of the time. But the leverage score is a little bit lower, meaning that he's in the optimal lineup a less percentage of the time than his salary would expect him to be there. That does not mean you can't play him. Not at all. It just means that he is not a value compared to where he is. I think this team with an incredibly high implied total should be one of the first places you look when you're pivoting off of the Kansas City, Arizona game, especially the Kansas City offense. I actually think this offense will be quite concentrated around Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams. It just won't go beyond that. The one player I do want to mention beyond that small group, I think all of them are playable. My favorite probably of the group is Eckler. I do want to mention Gerald Everett as well. The tight end, I think, has a chance to consistently slide in as the 4th receiving option. I know they like Joshua Palmer as well. He's more of the deep threat. But I think Gerald Everett, just 28 years old, speed score well above average, burst score in the 90th plus percentile according to playerprofiler.com, just 3,800. Stack him up with Justin Herbert and make that your skinny stack. Spend your salary on the high value options elsewhere.
Yeah, and even if I don't even know if you have to skinny stack it if you wanted to. Obviously you could, but
yeah,
with a tight end, how much do you really get out of Gerald Everett to make it worthwhile? You could run him with Keenan Allen or Mike Williams and you still won't have to pay an exorbitant price either. I mean, I think that also works pretty well.
They need that 4th option that can get open over the middle when defenses are spread out because they're focused on Eckler out of the backfield, Williams going deep, and Keenan Allen doing his Keenan Allen thing. This could be a very fruitful role even on a limited target share.
Anybody else from either side?
I don't really think so. I'm not really messing with the defenses either, although I kind of think the Chargers defense is interesting despite what our projections saying. Obviously defenses play whoever you want, but at 3,300, if you said that they picked off Derek Carr 3 times by the end of this game, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, let's talk Philly and Detroit. Third highest total on the slate, 48.5 points. Philly laying 4 on the road. I don't think it's a surprise that when if you're looking at ownership, that Jalen Hurts is certainly going to be up there among quarterbacks. And one of the reasons for that, and when I say up there right now, he's projected for the most ownership on the slate, right around in the ballpark of guys like Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, but still the highest right now. It's not a surprise because he can get it all done with his legs. When you look at last year, Jalen Hurts, not a good passer. Maybe he's better this year. I don't know, hopefully, but that's not where he produced. I mean, he threw 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, but he rushed for a position high 823 yards, position high 10 touchdowns on the ground. That's where so much of his appeal and his fantasy value comes from. I'm going to be very interested to see how he is now, how they implement the offense with A.J. Brown, with a second-year Devonta Smith, with Dallas Goedert, and a rushing quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Do they take some away from him in the run game? Does he throw more? Does he still run a lot? Do they run less to the running backs? I think there's a lot that we're going to figure out in the first few weeks of the season with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't think any of us right now know exactly what it's going to look like going into Sunday.
I completely agree with you. Actually, we really don't know how it's going to look, but let's break it down from a fantasy perspective because this is really interesting. Let's go back to that stat you were talking about, odds to be the highest scoring team in the NFL. Maybe the most surprising name in the top 10 for me is at number 10, Philadelphia Eagles. They're right there to be in the, to be in that second tier of the top scoring teams in the league this year. And then you add the fact that you have the passing upside now. You could have that Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, next level passing game that happens, that next level jump that players make. You could have a player who is really focused on rushing and is really, really capable in terms of volume and efficiency on the ground. He's just going to score fantasy points. That's the way I see it. And that's the way our projections see it as well. QB1 currently in our projections overall, even though he's just QB6 in salary-based expectations. In expected fantasy points, the volume was there to be a top 3 quarterback. 21.5 DraftKings PPR, DraftKings expected fantasy points, number 3 in the NFL. And our leverage score on our boom bust tool, number 1 quarterback as well. He's in the optimal lineup nearly 20% of the time right now.
How much do you want to stack him though, is the question. Because for me, I'm not that interested in like a 2 pass catcher stack with Jalen Hurts.
I think that's a fair way to play it, right? Because he hits the true ceiling, that 35-point game that sees you at the top of the lineups when he rushes for like a huge run and a touchdown. He probably adds more through the air, but I would probably lean on skinny stacks. Yeah, like just A.J. Brown or just Devonta Smith. I agree. Because the rushing upside is really what you're hoping for, especially if you're playing him in a tournament.
And they still ran the ball at the highest clip in the league last year. So even if they don't, they're still going to be a team that features a lot of running. Where did I see that? Would you stack would you do a stack with Eckler and one of the receivers? Sorry, Larry, I missed that earlier. Yeah, why not? Yeah, that's fine. You can stack Eckler with Justin.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. And we got soft. It's the typical week 1 thing. We got soft salaries all over the places. So if you want to do like they're not values, but they're totally in the you can play them range based on their salary based expectations. Take 2 of them, get values elsewhere.
Yep. Not street, but from the hood. Said Devonta Smith only 6,100 on FanDuel. I think he eats Sunday, especially against the Lions. Listen, dude. I don't disagree with any of that, but for me, I think he can eat, not I think he eats, because I don't know if it's going to be him or Brown or Dallas Goedert finds the end zone twice. They're going to score. It's just, we don't have any great, forget about all that bullshit from camp where they're like AJ Brown's getting all the targets in camp and in joint practice, and if God, he's going to have a 50% target share in the regular season. Devontae Smith was out of practice. He wasn't practicing. And then he comes back, and it just so happens that we see it spread out a little bit more. So yeah, it's impossible to say right now. I'm not trying to play like this wishy-washy fence sitting nonsense. What I'm saying is you're better off, taking shots on all of these guys and spreading it around in a very good matchup, because the Eagles do have one of the higher implied totals on the slate. Right now they're sitting at 26 and a half. On this slate, that's that's the third highest on the slate. I want shots on these guys, but they have a running quarterback. They might have a backfield by committee, and they might run the ball a lot. So for me, and someone mentioned this in chat the other day on the First Look show, I don't think it's a bad idea to get pieces of these guys, like I was saying with Kansas City, instead of just locking in on one. If it's cash, sure, like AJ Brown over Devontae Smith, but I think it could go many different ways. But we do know one thing: the Eagles should score a lot of points.
Well said. Well said. And because it's week one, we'll slow it down a little bit into the DFS lineup building process here. So how do we translate what we're talking about into how you might build a lineup? Say you're building 5 lineups for a tournament, right? And you're going to say, okay, in their top stacks tool, in ranking, they're number 3, but in value, they're the number 1 top stack. But sometimes Jalen Hurts gets there as a rusher. So one, I'm going to play Jalen Hurts alone. And then at my next lineup, I'm going to do Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. In my next lineup, I'm going to do Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith. In my next lineup, I'm going to do Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, and I'm going to leave Jalen Hurts out. These are how we make variations based on this analysis so that we can try to take down a tournament with unique lineups as well. So just wanted to slow it down just a little bit. I think this Eagles team is in for a really fun season, and I think they're going to win the division. I kind of planted my flag on this team saying that they have the pieces in place. They've had the offseason that the Dallas Cowboys wish they had, and they're going to take down the NFC East.
Are you hitting the backfield?
Man, Miles Sanders is hurt again with a soft tissue injury. I'm sick of this story, dude.
Full practice yesterday, at least.
I'm still scared. He's probably going to play. 5,400.
He's going to play for sure.
Playable.
It's the fact of how much is Gainwell and Scott going to get?
They should just use Miles Sanders as a bell cow, but the odds that they do is a true coin toss to me. We have him running back 20 in our projections. I think that's fair. I think your chance at a ceiling game, like a 25 fantasy point game, is pretty low, right? Probably 4% of the time that happens if you're simming this season out or simming this game out 100 times. You can play him if you want. It's probably not for me.
All right. And no, I hate when Matt says that he thinks the Eagles are going to win the division. I'm as superstitious and pessimistic as they come. When he says that, I'm like, jinxing him. You're mushing him already before the season starts. No, I actually will almost subconsciously just tune you out when you say that, Matt, so I don't have to hear it.
I think I actually reflexively said sorry the first time I said it on a live show with you, because you were like, why would you be sorry about that? And you're like, I know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I know. Look, with the Eagles backfield, what sucks is I want to play running backs for the Eagles because the matchup is so good. It's so good. Even if you see improvement in the run defense game for the Lions, they were still the worst run defense in the league last year. The reason their pass defense wasn't dead last in yards and touchdowns allowed was because their run defense was so much worse than anybody else, right? Like, go look at yards per attempt allowed in the passing game. They were horrible, but teams could just run on them as much as they wanted. Eagles had 250 rushing yards in week 8 against the Lions.
I'm trying not to weigh that matchup a lot because I've seen that in comments of other shows, and these are different teams. It's week 1,
but they're not. How much different are they in the run game?
I know
they got Aiden Hutchinson as an edge rusher, but the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. I'm not playing. By the way, Matt, I'm not playing Eagles running backs. I don't think I might sprinkle some Sanders in case he pops off, but I don't trust him either. I'm with you. But how much different really is the Detroit Lions defense?
Not significantly. We just, if we don't have a lot of information about a team, which we don't in week 1, we just kind of regress everything back towards the middle in terms of Schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses, the amount they allowed versus opponents' average scoring, they were fourth worst in the league. So they're pretty darn bad.
Yeah. And Matt Riley, at this point in Sanders' career, though, if he's not used like that, you got to think the multiple coaches he's now had are on to something. He averaged 19 looks per game in Doug Peterson's last season. And over the second half of last year, before he got hurt again, he was averaging like 17 and a half carries per game. So I don't know. You guys know how I feel. Like, I desperately want Sanders to be good because I think as an actual running back, he is good, but it's a tough spot in week one. Good matchup, great matchup, but tough in terms of we have no idea.
Right.
What about Detroit, man? Philly bolstered the secondary a decent amount.
They did. And people are giving this team the Hard Knocks boost. They're likable. They're talented. They're not ready yet, in my opinion. I think this Philly team has a chance to wallop them in week one. Compared to salary-based expectations, no one's looking fantastic from the Detroit side. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6,100 salary, wide receiver 13 on DraftKings. It's pretty steep. TJ Hawkinson, tight end 6, 4,900. That's certainly not out of the running because it's under 5K. We can make that work, but it's not exciting. It's not a value. Same with DJ Chark at wide receiver 39. We don't even like Josh Reynolds that much. You know, if you're getting way down there into the GPP trying to win $1 million range, and Jared Goff, quarterback 17, 5,400. We've got him 6 spots below that on our current quarterback projection-based rankings. I'd like to see Detroit do better this year, but right now the numbers say it's not happening in week one.
Swift is the one guy that's going to get ownership.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think it's deserved. I have no problem with that. I mean, I do know Dan Campbell likes Jamal Williams too, though. So that's not really lost on me. I do think do you not expect Jamal Williams to have some involvement still in the run game?
He's going to. I mean, if anything, that's the signal I got from Hard Knocks is that Jamal Williams is a coach's favorite.
He loves
for obvious reasons, because he's an emotional center for the team. He cares a lot, and he's at least league average running back. That's probably enough to get him touches and probably enough to keep Swift away from bell cow status, barring injury.
The one spot that I don't mind, though, is TJ Hawkinson at very low ownership. The Eagles did, they made some improvements to the linebacking core, but it's still, in my opinion, the weakest part of their defense. And I think this could be a spot where Jared Goff looks to exploit that part of their defense as he did last year. Again, you're right. It's only one game. I don't like bringing up one game samples, but if a certain team continues to have a weaker spot in the offense, or in the defense, sorry, it is something I'll look at. And their secondary got a lot better. Bradbury might not be what he used to be, but James Bradbury, Darius Slay was phenomenal last year. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they just brought over from New Orleans. He's going to be playing safety. Honestly, they're not bad at nickel corner either, but I look at TJ Hawkinson and think this could be one of those 10 target games for him. So do I love him at his price? I don't love him, but I definitely like the fact that he's getting 3% ownership right now. So no one's looking at him, and it's the third highest total game of the slate. So I think there could be a lot of passing opportunity there for TJ Hawkinson.
Good call. In our boom bust tool, he has a solid leverage score. So that's that's a way to play it in tournaments for sure.
All right. Sammy Teleska, it's the Buffalo War Pigs. Love you, boys. Had to get surgery. Would have been back sooner, but had to recover. Hey, man, I had to recover my email to get on YouTube. I should have read that part. I thought he said he needed to recover. Well, hopefully you did recover, and also that email. Also, welcome to Team Stokastic, Sammy. Good to have you. It's the Buffalo War Pigs. We know. If you know, you know. All right, Matt, Green Bay. Oh, and by the way, I think Philly's defense is perfectly fine in a spot like this as well. Good pass rush, good secondary. Not my favorite, but I don't hate them. Green Bay and Minnesota. Here's another situation where you have a lot of question marks. Just, you want to talk about moving parts where we really don't know what's going on? Alan Lazard, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday or yesterday. Robert Tonyan, questionable, limited practice yesterday. If both of those guys sit, you're talking Watkins, Romeo Doubs, you're talking Randall Cobb. Those are, I guess, Christian Watson. These are the guys you're looking at for week one, not named Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon.
So I don't know what to make of this Green Bay Packers team. I'm trying to start from the rational in terms of what I would do with this new look lineup, and then move towards the noise and the signal that we get from the preseason and the beat writers and all that stuff, because they truly don't know, even if they're at practice all the time, until they get on the field. The most rational thing would be for Aaron Rodgers to get Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon involved as much as possible, whether that is through the running game or the passing game. That's mostly game script dependent, and then just utilize the wide receivers as necessary, especially with how banged up they've been. Hey, Sammy Telesco, thanks, man, for the super chat, by the way.
Appreciate you, bro.
Man, appreciate you a lot, man. Hope you're feeling all right as well. But here's the deal, guys. Aaron Rodgers will eventually trust someone, and that person will get a very large target share from the two-time MVP, the back-to-back MVP of the league. And that is going to be valuable. And right now, ownership is super spread out because we have no idea who that is. That can be a really good place to try to ride the wave. Try to guess who it is so that you enjoy the weeks as we're discovering who that is. Could it be Lazard? Absolutely. And he's only 5,600. Like, you can get that upside into your lineup. I actually think Sammy Watkins has a higher chance of having success than our projections indicate right now. He's only 4,700. Randall Cobb is the player where I feel like I'm trying to take down $1 million. I'm trying to get a ceiling game. That's not for me at 3,400 even. Even Robert Tonyan, if he's able to get on the field, he's one that has shown chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. That high touchdown rate may not exist all the time, but they need somebody to emerge. Why not him?
Yeah, I hear you. I just don't know if Lazard's going to play.
Yeah. No, I actually said I said the tight end Robert Tonyan, who.
No, I know, but you mentioned Lazard earlier, saying like that could be the guy. What I'm saying is, what if him and Tonyan both don't play? It's very possible that they don't, in my opinion.
And then you're looking at a wide receiver core of Dobbs, Watkins, Cobb.
And Watson, I guess, if he gets on the field. But he hardly was at practice all summer with the injuries.
They have to play Watson. If they are down 2 in the receiving core, they have to play Watson if he's healthy and even remotely ready to go.
I'll tell you, if Lazard sits and Tonyan's out, remember, Alan Lazard was a legitimate red zone and end zone threat last year. Go look at his touchdown totals over the final quarter plus of the season. He was racking them up. Rodgers clearly trusted him in the red zone, especially when teams were putting so much attention on Devonta Adams. Remember Robert Tonyan from 2 years ago, double-digit touchdowns. Who are your options in the red zone, in the end zone specifically? I think you're going to see a lot of pass catching, a lot of scheming to get guys like Aaron Jones and even A.J. Dillon work in the passing game, especially in the red zone. Look, you know how I've been on Aaron Jones all summer long. I like A.J. Dillon more in redraft leagues and fantasy football leagues because you could get him 50 picks or more after Aaron Jones. But in DFS, I like both of them. And I think, I don't want to play him in the same lineup, but I think Aaron Jones could smash this week against Minnesota. I think A.J. Dillon, who crushed and led the league in goal line carries over the final half of the season, I think he can crush as well. Both of these guys are in a pretty good spot. And I think if Alan Lazard is out or Robert Tonyan or both of them, you're just going to see more passing volume go to the running backs. And I think both of them are going to be on the field together quite a bit too. My guess is that Matt LaFleur will plan for that and find ways to get them the ball and get them in space as well. You
know why that scares me? Because it circles back to what we were saying about the most rational thing to do. And I don't know if it's going to happen. I completely agree with you. And here's the part, and we can segue into the Vikings this way. The Vikings, I believe, this is another stand I'm taking this season. I might look very silly as we end week 1. I think they're going to be way more pass heavy this year, guys. I think they are going to be much more pass focused as a team. They are going to look much more modern in their concepts. And I think you're going to see a third receiving option emerge without volume being taken away from Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen or Dalvin Cook for that matter. I think this team pushes the tempo. And if they are successful against a Green Bay defense that honestly was league average last year in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing opposing offenses, Minnesota might look different and force Green Bay into a game script dependent, pass happy offense that they don't want to be in with this many receivers down for them.
You don't have a lot of confidence in this Green Bay secondary, huh?
I mean, outside, Jair Alexander is a fantastic player. Absolutely. And I think they're going to use him very, very well. But I'm just looking at how it affected fantasy points last year. And it was, 2 or 3 points, fantasy points better than the exact average of the NFL. So it's just kind of I hate to say defenses don't matter, but like, it's just not something that scares me overall. Maybe it's because Alexander missed time last year, though.
He missed what, like 10 games, 11 games?
I mean, that could drastically change things. Green Bay is one of those teams where if you told me they were top 5, 7 in the league defensively by the end of the year, wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know. I just really think this Minnesota offense is going to surprise people in terms of the way that they play compared to previous seasons.
All right. So who do you like for Minnesota this week?
Down the list, man. Justin Jefferson is wide receiver 2 in salary. His salary-based expectations are fine. His projection is great. Adam Thielen, salary-based expectations on a 5,400 player, way less than what we have him projected for. And even though he's always efficient in the end zone and people say he relies on touchdown too much, it doesn't really show up in expected fantasy points. He had 12.5 DraftKings expected fantasy points last year, wide receiver 22, which would still be a value. Then consider the fact that he's always been efficient on that. He's really my favorite probably, but then you got to look at Irv Smith as that most likely to emerge third option. We have him well above KJ Osborne in terms of being that guy. I think Osborne's a fine tournament play, but Irv Smith at 3,400, definitely the best value there.
Dalvin Cook is always intriguing to me because there's no way he only has 6 touchdowns again this year. And I'm not really worried about the fact that they might throw more under Kevin O'Connell. It doesn't bother me. He's a good pass catching back. He's a perfectly good pass catching back. He's not Austin Eckler. I'm not saying that. It's not James White, but he doesn't need to be. Keep him on the field a lot, and you're probably going to get a ton of opportunities from someone like Dalvin Cook. But again, the question with him is, being that he's priced so closely to so many of these other top tier backs, where should we be grading him or ranking him this week? And the only thing I can say about that is he's getting 6% ownership. This is a clear bell cow back. They're an endangered species, in the NFL these days. Jonathan Taylor getting a ton of ownership, Christian McCaffrey getting a ton, all of these other bell cows getting a lot. Derrick Henry also up there, 17%, Barkley or Taylor 22, McCaffrey 17. Dalvin Cook at home in what should be a very competitive game is getting 6%.
That's really interesting. He needs 23.5 fantasy points for a 3x game at 7,900. We have him below salary-based expectations in our projection, but I still don't hate the play. I'm actually surprised to see that he only shows up in about 2% of our optimal lineups, giving him a below average leverage score in our tools. But I don't think that really tells the whole story necessarily. He's still in the top 10, obviously in median projection, so you can play him if you want. But I think you're right. I think there are a lot of ways this goes well, especially if, the narrative I'm talking about with this team just overall being stronger, the scoring chances are going to be higher and that touchdown rate's going to go up, helping Dalvin Cook's ceiling increase. So I don't hate it at all. Our projections are a little bit saying the opposite way, but that's how you get different in a tournament. You take your own path on one player who has obviously tournament winning upside.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just a question of, Packers are 1.5 point favorites. Vikings have a 23 point implied total, which is fine. Mm-hmm. I think the upside is there, is what I'm saying. All right. Anybody else from this game? You want to keep it going?
KJ Osborne is the only one I'm thinking about, but he's not necessarily that low salary, 4,900 compared to Irv Smith, 3,400, and having equal probability of being that new third option. Smith is clearly the value, making Osborne only a large field play.
All right. Now hit that thumbs up. We're almost at 100, phenomenal ratio, by the way. We're looking at like a 33% viewer to likes ratio right now, that is not only encouraging, but it makes me feel good about myself. So thank you greatly for that. No, for real though, it helps us a ton. That, and if you're new, subscribe to the channel. We do this every week, and we got a ton of stuff around here. We also have the promo. We talk about the top stack tool, ownership projections for every sport. If you want to get 7 days for $7, a Stokastic plus Platinum, everything on the site, right? Every single tool, including the new lineup generator, which is free for week 1, but including that, 7 days for $7, everything on the site, football, baseball, golf right now, MMA, any other sport that's out there, whether it's a niche sport like esports or whatever, projections, ownership, top stacks, top plays, all of our showdown content. Scramble gets it to you $7 for 7 days. It's $1 a day. That's it. You spend
How cool is this
$7
new stuff
in your sleep. So if you want to get in on that, take advantage of that. You do it today, you get next week's showdown as well. So also stokastic.com/promos will get that for you, where you can just click on it and it'll make it easier, or use Scramble at checkout. All right. New England and the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Waddle questionable, limited practice yesterday. The interesting thing for me, we'll get to this, is Edmonds, Gaskin, and Salvin Ahmed are all on the injury report. If that thing with Chase Edmonds is more serious than it looks, we'll start with Miami. Then I'm telling you right now, I will be very much obliged to play some Raheem Mostert, who amazingly is the only running back not on the injury report, and he's always hurt.
Flashback to week 1 last year.
He was crushing.
Sorry. And also, I got to take 1 second, guys. These new tools are just insanely cool at Stokastic. Get in the lineup generator and the player compare tool. Awesome. So in Miami, this looks like it's going to be a mess. It looks like, I don't know. It's not as a team, but in the backfield. If there's injuries to be concerned about, just play the passing game. And I hate to say it. I'm sorry, Lepre, if you're still in here, Notorious Fantasy. I think this is a upset in the making. Looking at the defensive stats of the New England Patriots, I think they're going to match up pretty well with this Miami team. I do still have high hopes for this Miami offense, especially in the passing game. I think Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Cedric Wilson, that is a great receiving core that even an average level quarterback should be able to elevate. But if you're talking about the running game being split up between 3 players and one of them being hurt, one of them being injury prone, and then we might have actually others involved, that's not a good situation to chase in DFS. Right now, our projections compared to salary-based expectations still have Chase Edmonds as the clear value. We'll see what that looks like on Sunday.
I'm not a Chase Edmonds guy. You know that.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't mean anything. It just means I very, very seldom have confidence in him. But if he plays, yeah, he's probably going to be the one to get the majority of work. Do you like him if he's active and not limited?
Chase Edmonds?
Yeah, if he's not limited and he's a good to go.
The projected workload has looked good all year. And then at 5,200, running back 32, yeah, the opportunity expectations are going to exceed that. I mean, splitting time with James Conner and not getting any of the goal line work, he was still top 20 in expected fantasy points per game last year. So his opportunity value can only go up, assuming health. I'd like to like Chase Edmonds. Is kind of how I feel about it. I'll probably put him in like 3 to 5% of lineups, but I'm not excited to get there.
Are you excited to get to the passing game? Aren't you a big Tua guy this year?
I do think that he's going to make this work. I think the receiving game is good enough where this is just going to be at least league average, but probably above league average in terms of opportunity value from a fantasy perspective. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 6 in our, in salary ranking. He's wide receiver 4 in our projections. Jalen Waddle's the one where we feel like the salary is a little steep, but it's still in the you can play him range. We got him top 15, needs about 19 to 20 points to feel really good about his day. Now, analyst Nick Lepre over on the Fantasy Channel was saying that Tua was saying in a quote that if Jalen Waddle plays, and then he went on with the quote. So that actually doesn't make me feel all that good. I thought it was more of a lock that he was going to play. If he doesn't play, then I got to look at Cedric Wilson because I think he'll be on the field a ton, and defense will obviously be focused heavily on Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I don't think Waddle's a sure thing at all this week, but the Cedric Wilson piece is interesting for sure. And you know how the whole like Bill Belichick notorious for taking the best player out of the game. I don't know. Who knows how true that would be with Tyreek Hill. I'm pretty sure Tyreek Hill's had some big games against New England in the past. Anyway, you guys can confirm that in chat or deny that. But would Tyreek Hill, if Jalen Waddle's out at 6,800, not be someone you're looking towards?
You have to look that way, but I do.
So.
I think New England's defense is going to. Yeah, God, I hate to sound like a trope, but they're going to try to take away that clear number one option.
I think you could be right. Wilson would be interesting. I wouldn't have a problem with that. They're getting him, pretty inexpensive, and he's had some weeks in the past, right? Cedric Wilson has had a couple of those, pop off type weeks. Matter of fact, he had I could see it. 3,900. I get it. What about the Patriots, man? This is a team that I don't want to. You can spend as much time as you want on it. I don't really have a ton of interest in spending that much time on this one because I don't really know what to do, whether it's Devontae Parker or it's Damian Harris or it's Ramondre Stevenson. Any of these guys, just what is there really to look at and say, man, I like them a lot this week? And hell, Jacoby Myers. Their offensive line has been such an issue all summer long as well that I'm not really sure how they're going to look. So,
that is fair. And talk about the ability to spread the ball around. They have talent down the board. None of it is premier talent, but all of it is above average talent, which is a disaster from a fantasy perspective. The one player who has a projection so far above their salary-based expectations that I will take a chance on is Jacoby Myers, a 5.2% leverage score. That means he's in the optimal lineup 5% more than his salary indicates that he would be, or his projection indicates that he would be. And so that's the one that I would take a chance on. I don't need Devontae Parker. I don't need Damian Harris. I don't really need Ramondre Stevenson, although I kind of get it at just 5,500. He's the more explosive player of the two in the backfield. And I really don't want to decide between Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith either. So probably miss me with these secondary and tertiary options in the New England game. I will say I'm going to take a few shots on Jacoby Myers.
Okay. I get it. Maybe he'll see some positive regression as far as touchdowns go this year. Wouldn't that be nice? You know what else would be nice is if you got free money over there with a first match deposit bonus at Underdog Fantasy and a free best ball draft kit. You guys still have time. I got some more drafts in yesterday. I know Matt's been drafting. I know Mike's been drafting. You use the promo code Stokastic over at UnderdogFantasy.com. Get up to $100 first match deposit bonus. You put in 10, you get 10. You put in 50, they'll give you a $50 first match deposit bonus. Use it wherever you want. They still got the $500,000 puppy over there. They've had massive contests. I'm assuming Best Ball Mania 3 is filled, would be my guess. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It's worth checking. But still, a ton of contests, daily contests. They have player prop contests throughout the week and every day for other sports as well. There's no waivers. You're not trading, no management, none of that bullshit. You go in, you draft your team, and you watch the points add up every single week. I like fantasy football. I like DFS, but I always get best ball lineups in because I want to have that sweat where I just see what my team is doing without me having to do anything each week. We got enough other stuff going on. So if you want to get in on it, you haven't done any best ball teams yet, or you haven't done it at Underdog, Stokastic, Stokastic, gets you up to $100 first match deposit bonus and our best ball draft kit, which is a $70 value. Use them in conjunction with each other and take down a lot of money over at UnderdogFantasy.com. The app is sick too. I use the app all the time.
It's so nice. Puppy 4, we still got Puppy 4. BBM 3 did fill.
Okay.
Thanks Nolan Kelly in there in the chat as well. Yeah, Puppy 4, and they still got other bigger entry tournaments as well. Truly awesome.
Okay. So Colts and the Houston Texans. Colts laying 7 on the road. Matt, guess what? I think this could be a nice little backdoor cover spot for the Houston Texans at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think the Houston Texans defense is not going to be that bad this year.
Okay. Okay, interesting.
I still love Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman this week, no doubt about it. But I think the trajectory looks like this for the Houston Texans. Maybe not that, but a little bit of that. I think you're going to see some improvement this year under Lovie Smith. They drafted Derek Stingley. What was he, second overall? They drafted him.
Yeah, he shot up. He shot up the draft board at the end there.
Yeah. And even in the preseason, when their starters were out there against other starters, I know it's just the preseason, but they shut Trey Lance and the starters down. They've done a decent job assembling a defense that I'll put it this way, is not going to be, this is my prediction. Talk about a lukewarm take. Not going to be nearly as bad as last season. I think they'll still be, not great, but maybe even league average. That said, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, two of my favorite plays this week. It's week 1. We can only go off of what we actually know. And we know that this on paper right now is a very good matchup for both of them.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting take. That is a really interesting take. And it'd probably take you away from Jonathan Taylor at 9,100, who is the true premier flex player that people are looking for. And he's got a projection that's worthwhile. He's in the optimal lineup still a fifth of the time in our current simulation. So we're not moving away from Jonathan Taylor, but playing things differently, building a lineup that builds off a different narrative than the one that people expect is definitely a way that you take down big tournament prizes. I still think from a value-based perspective, Michael Pittman looks so good on paper this week, and I'm definitely going to be playing him at just 5,500 on DraftKings. The salary is right. The projection is right. The expected fantasy points last year for the inaccurate Carson Wentz were right, even compared to the salary. I mean, this guy could be an alpha receiver, just taking that next step to a top 12 option in this league. I think Houston will be fine defensively, but I think they're closer to like 16th to 20th best in the league as a best case scenario.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to be, 29th through 32nd is what I'm saying.
Where they were last year, yeah.
Yeah. Steven asked, how do I get the best ball draft kit after deposit? Yeah, I think we just email. Nolan's in the chat. Maybe he can answer that for you. I think we just email you if you use the underdog promo. I think we'll just email it to you, but or shoot you an email. But Nolan, if you're still in chat, let Steven know, or whoever else was wondering how they will get it. I mean, obviously we'll get it to you. I just don't know the exact process. It's above my pay grade. All right. I don't want anything else from the Colts, though. I mean, Jonathan Taylor and Pittman are great, but I don't really feel like taking shots on Paris Campbell or Alec Pierce, unless you're saying that you're fading Jonathan Taylor in lineups and you're going with an Indy stack, which in that case, I don't think it's the worst idea. But I have zero interest in one-offing anybody outside of Pittman and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I was actually going to come in and kind of say that. I was going to maybe go away from Pittman in tournaments and stack up Matt Ryan and Alec Pierce, Matt Ryan, Paris Campbell. They both have projections ahead of their salary-based expectations. Matt Ryan right at his salary-based expectations. And what if the Colts are secretly a really good team with Matt Ryan, who I think the numbers don't show just how much better of a quarterback he is than Carson Wentz, but the team will, and the team's competency will show that. If Houston is still just league average or worse defensively, then we're probably in a situation where a secondary receiver does emerge in a lot of times if we played out this season or games. Man, I think Matt Ryan, Alec Pierce, and Paris Campbell are a really interesting, sneaky stack.
I do too. I just want Pittman in all of them. That's where we differ.
Okay, I see.
Unless Derek Stingley is just amazing out of the gate and locks up Michael Pittman, from like preseason and then from everything we've seen in camp, Matt Ryan is basically just has this insane chemistry with Pittman already. I would, for me, and I see where you're going. I would definitely double stack, but personally, I would want Pittman to be in that double stack. I'd probably have him in all of them personally. At 5,500, you're not paying alpha receiver price for Michael Pittman. You're paying the same price as, look at some of these. You're paying the same price. You're paying less than Darnell Mooney, less than Hunter Renfrow, less than Amari Cooper. less than Deontay Johnson, less than DJ Moore, less than Amon-Ra St. Brown. At that price at 5,500, I just personally don't think I could get away from it in a stack.
I'm just looking at it and going, okay, I know it's the Texans. I know they're well below average in pretty much any metric you look at as a team. But if Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman don't succeed, that probably meant the team didn't succeed.
Doesn't score. And my Texans to cover bet looks very good.
Yeah, that's how it happens. So I think that's a rational way to play it.
Anybody else from actually, do you want to, let's talk about Dameon Pierce and Brandon Cooks. Might not be a good Houston team, but they do have a couple of interesting options at their price points.
I hope that Dameon Pierce becomes a thing. And look, his salary has been here for a while now. So the hype train has rode way past where his salary-based expectations put him. He's a value this week in DFS. It's 4,800, running back 41 in DK's salary rankings. Then he's running back 25 in our projections. Good to go. Absolutely good to go. We have no idea what we're talking about, though. Like, he's a rookie on the Texans. Lovie Smith is one of these old school coaches, I should say, who might just give the veterans the first crack at it for the first 3 quarters until they're running for 3.1 yards a carry and he's had enough. Brandon Cooks is still going to be just fine in this offense, but even he is priced up in a we expect you to do well. 6.3K, wide receiver 11. We got projections for him right there. He's at exactly the same amount of optimal lineup percentage as we would expect someone of his salary to have. Not exciting, but probably worthwhile if you're making 20 lineups to have 1 or 2.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm with you on that. I like Dameon Pierce, though. I'll tell you, I can't imagine once we get ownership updates closer to the start of the week or the start of Sunday, that Dameon Pierce's ownership doesn't come up from where it is. I just can't see that staying at sub 2%.
No way. We gotta throw in some hype metrics in there to make sure the ownership model knows what Twitter's saying or something.
Yeah, but it's not even. Yeah, well, for sure. But it's not even just hype. It's like the guy's still sub 5K and is probably going to get a lot of work, right?
Yeah, I don't know, really, actually. I don't know, because I think Rex Burkhead played well enough at the end of last season where if the new coaches are looking at the tape from what the Texans did well last year, Rex Burkhead was one of the only things that did anything well.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
So, I don't know. Maybe Pierce is just significantly better athletically, and it's obvious to anyone watching.
Wasn't it Burkhead against the Chargers that went nuts?
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes just try and a lot of times you're just doing your best to make educated guesses and try and get your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I just found it interesting that Dameon Pierce didn't play in the second game of the preseason. Like, he had already locked up the job, and then in week 3, he was out there with the starters again. The biggest question for me is who is the third down back? And if it's Burkhead, does Pierce still get like 3 or 4 targets in this game? Because if he does, makes him really appealing. But again, if his ownership, if he doesn't get steamed and you're talking still like a 5% Dameon Pierce, I still think that's fine.
I agree.
But
what if it gets up to like 10, 15%? Like, what's that line for you?
Then I don't think there's enough touchdown equity for me to be like, yeah, 15% looks good. But I think at 2 to 5 to 6%, I'd be perfectly okay with that. But as a run back and Colts stacks, if I'm stacking Matt Ryan, Cooks is the obvious answer, is your favorite run back option. I don't think it's even close.
Absolutely. Nico Collins gets a shout out as well, but it's only because they need somebody else, anybody else to produce there. I am probably not playing secondary options on the Texans.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in that at all. But I do have interest in moving on to this Baltimore Jets game because J.K. Dobbins is questionable, limited in practice, still no contact. My guess is I think he's trending towards doubtful, personally.
I think you're right.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. It feels like he probably doesn't play. Then Ronnie Stanley, don't sleep on that. If Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, who has worked wonders for Lamar Jackson in the past, if he also sits, this offense doesn't look as good. That isn't to say that Bateman and Lamar Jackson aren't great plays as big favorites against the Jets. That's not what I'm saying. but I think it would help if both of them are in. If J.K. Dobbins is out though, Matt, maybe you could want to convince me otherwise. I know Gus Edwards is out, for the foreseeable future. I still have little interest in trying to figure out which running back is going to be used among Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake.
I mean, we had this whole charade last year, right? And we tried to figure it out week one when everybody dropped like flies, and somebody's got to emerge, right? It's a starting running back on an NFL team. The Ravens just do things differently, guys. They'll use a running back by committee. They'll use the option. They'll use Lamar Jackson as the ultimate weapon there. And honestly, I think their passing game is in a better place to succeed than it has been in the last few years. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who's going to be on the field a ton, are going to allow them to run 2 tight end sets the way that they want to run them. And then you've got Bateman on the outside, who I think is in for a big season, and then a field stretcher, probably Devin Duvernay or the special teamer, mostly James Prochet, but those are just guys running 9 routes all day. So we're probably not going there. I think this passing game could be concentrated. Obviously, Andrews is a great play. It could be efficient. They're playing the Jets. And it's probably not going to be that owned. I mean, in terms of top stack value and ranking, they're top 6 in both metrics on the top stacks tool at Stokastic.com. I know Lamar Jackson's salary on DraftKings is pretty high at $7,300, third highest among all quarterbacks, but I think the ceiling is crazy high for this team, and you know who the ball's going to in the passing game.
Yeah, it's fair. Look, Greg Roman throughout his entire career as an offensive coordinator has never thrown the foot. He's been top 3 in run play percentage almost every season as a coach. That's crazy. But last year, Baltimore was 11th, basically, 11th in run play percentage. I love the idea of skinny stacking Lamar Jackson, whether it's Mark Andrews or Bateman. Once again, not all that interested in getting Bateman and Mark Andrews in there. We could probably count on one hand the amount of times, if that like a double stack Baltimore lineup is winning main slate contests, right? It doesn't happen.
I think it could happen more often this
year.
Really?
Okay.
I get what you're saying. It's the same argument we were talking about earlier. For quarterbacks who hit their true ceiling performance as a rusher, it degrades. It's a negative correlation with their secondary wide receivers because the volume isn't there for them. But I don't think it's impossible. We did see this offense with Tyler Huntley start to pass the ball more. Maybe they work in some of that schematically. Obviously, Jackson's the man. They let him just see the defense as he sees it and do what he wants.
All right. That can't be right. Okay, how many career 300-yard passing games do you think Lamar Jackson has?
1.
3.
Yeah, I knew it was low.
Damn.
It's just a low volume thing, though. Like his yards per attempt is fine. His advanced metrics are fine. Sure. Yeah.
Like if you think the volume is going to go up, then yeah. 3 out of 58, though. Woo. That's crazy. I thought he had at least 5.
I mean, what I'm seeing is that last year's top options, Mark Andrews was number 1 among all tight ends in expected fantasy points, and Marquise Brown was top 12. And so that's enough in terms of opportunity value to make 2 things happen.
Sure. I would be interested to see like what the overlap on big games was for those guys. I haven't really looked into it, but it would be interesting to see, if they had, how many times both of them had this many plus fantasy points in a game, like 15. What would you need to win from both of them? 20 plus?
You would need 20 or so from Mark Andrews and probably 16 to 18 from Bateman.
Okay.
Because he's only 5,300.
Right. Okay.
Those are not unreasonable.
No, it's doable for sure. All right. New York Jets. No Zach Wilson until at least week 4. You got Joe Flacco. Who knows what the backfield looks like? I don't know. Usually you'll find something on a team like this. I just have very little interest in targeting this team on any front for week 1. I don't think I need to.
It's bad. It's not fun. It's the Jets. Elijah Moore, even, I was hoping that it would look better. He's wide receiver 29. He's kind of up there in pricing, 5,100. Even Garrett Wilson's 4,700. We've got them below salary-based expectations. We got Breece Hall below salary based expectations. We get even Joe Flacco at quarterback 26 below salary based expectations. The only player that is technically a value that, like, play him if you want, maybe if you're playing 20 lineups one time, Michael Carter, the one who probably has guaranteed workload. Is he getting 20 points like in 1% of outcomes? I don't really think the Jets are making it this year. I know people had high hopes for them, but I think it's already just gone downhill with the offensive line injuries and the quarterback injuries. I think it's going to be another tough year.
Larry C., I took Ben's advice. I took Baltimore in Survivor. Yeah, check out Ben's Survivor videos on the Odd Shopper channel. If you guys are in the betting or you want to get in the betting, well, we got you covered. We're putting out so much content, good content too. We're not just spraying, shit against the walls and hoping people watch it. Metaphorically speaking, of course. We want to give you the best content possible.
The scary part is people would watch the literal. That's the scary part.
I mean, I'd probably stick around for a minute. Yeah. But yeah, Odd Shopper, ODDS Shopper, all one word. Come join us, man. We're going to have a great time. And Eitan, Ben, and myself tomorrow, every Friday with a live show. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Let's talk about the next one. Pittsburgh and the Cincinnati Bengals. Sounds like Deontay Johnson really might not play in this game. Stay tuned for this one. He said he's doing everything in his power to be ready for week one, but there seems to be some uncertainty here. It looks like he's not very encouraged by this progress right now. Pay close attention to that, Matt. It's worth looking into.
That's not good. I tried to do everything I could.
Yeah.
So players are typically overly optimistic.
Yep. How many players right now are being like, I'll be out there for week one, and then they won't be? He's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Interesting. Yep, that's signal for me. Deontay Johnson, in terms of projection, on paper, he looks fine, but we got to reevaluate if he's out. Actually, Pat Freiermuth, I think at 4,200 would be a really interesting place to look with new quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Obviously, Chase Claypool is the first player people are thinking of when Deontay Johnson is out. But I think George Pickens, man, it's going to be a thing early. Right now, he's 4,100, wide receiver 60. We actually have him projected for a little bit more than his salary-based expectations, but I think that skyrockets a ton if Deontay Johnson is out. His ownership will obviously also increase a ton because right now it's quite low, like 2.5%. I think it'll shoot up to like 5 to 10%. Yep, Pickens is that guy for me. And Najee Harris, obviously, the volume's built in no matter who's playing wide receiver.
Yeah, the only reason Najee Harris isn't more popular this week is because Saquon Barkley's so popular. Which
is weird, right? Like Saquon is just at the right salary price, I suppose, but it's not a great matchup by any stretch.
He's got 2 times the ownership as Najee Harris. I can't think of another reason why Barkley would be that high and Harris wouldn't, or why Harris would be at 11, other than the fact that Barkley's at 20, north of 20.
Well, this is why I start every conversation here, because it's not 2013 anymore. We can't just look at, a graph with salary on one side and then expected score on the other side and say like, oh, Saquon looks like a value. His situation isn't that good. The game environment isn't that good. I'm excited for Saquon. His reception floor helps him from a fantasy perspective. But what are the chances that he's really getting 25, 30 fantasy points? You're getting that fire icon next to you on your lineup. I know we just jumped around, but like that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So Najee seems like an equally strong play at just a slightly higher salary.
I think so too. And shit, if Deontay Johnson's out, might see even more passing volume going to Najee Harris.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I agree. I think they should have very, very similar ownership at those price points. They're only $300 separated, but we'll see. How much
they're
do you
both
want to
underdogs? Like weird.
I know. Yeah, they're both they're both around touchdown dogs. One a little more, one a little less. They're both on the road. I don't know. Dude, I don't know. I wish I did. I do know that Joe Burrow and the Bengals have a lot of firepower. And from Joe Mixon in the backfield to Jamar Chase to T. Higgins, and I don't necessarily want to sleep on Hayden Hurst either. I wouldn't be shocked if Hayden Hurst comes out and has like a 4 reception, 40-yard, 1 touchdown game at 3,300. That could be something that in Joe Burrow stacks where you're not playing both Higgins and Jamar Chase could get you a little bit of take a little bit of pressure taken off in terms of salary. So it's an interesting team this week at home against a divisional opponent.
Yeah, if you want to pivot away from the big dogs in the Cincinnati passing game to a player like Hurst, absolutely rational. Even Tyler Boyd at 4,800 is rational, but these guys can play, man. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are both incredible receivers. I know Pittsburgh, in terms of defensive prowess, they don't suck in the secondary, but I don't think they are going to be elite as they were in previous seasons either. And I think Jamar Chase is a top 5 talent in the league at the wide receiver position. Just 7,100. Again, it's a soft pricing week as week 1 typically is. We can fit Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow into lineups this week. In our top stacks tool, they are number 2 in top stack probability and number 3 in our value ranking over there. And I think T. Higgins is really strong at 6,100 as well. This is a team I'm not afraid to double stack.
Me neither. And I'm going to want one of Chase and Higgins in all of those lineups, but I don't need both of them in all of the lineups either. Is kind of how I see this one. When you're looking at teams like this, you want, if you're looking just in terms of projections, and this is from someone that much smarter than I am. He would always, if he's stacking a team, he's always has at least one player that's projected for a threshold amount of points, and wouldn't take like 2 of them that are below that and none of the guys above that. So I've kind of tried to use that for my own approach too.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because it's like you made a good point about the Colts. Like if none of the top guys do anything or go off, it's not likely that they score a ton of points anyway. So, it's not to say that Boyd and Hayden Hurst can't both have big games, but it seems unlikely that they both have big games and Chase and T. Higgins do nothing.
It would be hyper rare. The Bengals are capable of that, right? Because
Sure.
if Joe Mixon had a four touchdown game and the top receiver only had 5 receptions, something like that, you could see that actually happening for the Bengals in a successful game. Not so with the Colts, though, that first example we were saying.
Right. But what I'm saying is, yeah, Joe Mixon's different because you're talking about the run game, and that's isolating the run game where if that's the case, Boyd and Hurst aren't having big games too. Yeah. I'm saying if you're just stacking Burrow with Boyd and Hurst and not any of the top dogs, I guess it's possible,
I'm doing that if I'm actually just game stacking it. I'm taking my shot at Boyd and Hurst, and then I'm running it back with someone I think on the Steelers is going to have a huge game.
Gotcha. Do you have anyone else for Cincy?
I think we hit everybody. I think the Cincy D is one that might go overlooked. Their salary is kind of high at 3,600 for a defense, obviously, but Trubisky and Pickett behind him, if Trubisky completely falls on his face, we don't know what Trubisky is going to look like. He was a backup last year. This could be a bad quarterback situation.
If there's rain in this game and no winds, they're going to throw the ball still. I just talking with chat here. They're still going to throw the football. We've seen it time and time again where when you fade aspects of a game because of just like standard rain, it oftentimes backfires.
Yeah. People are really talking about weather in the chat. Let's wait a minute. Even this Chicago San Francisco game, I'm not sure game plans are going to be entirely switched up because of weather this week.
Jacksonville Jaguars on the road against the Washington Commanders. Jacksonville Jags 2.5-point dogs, 44-point total here. At this point, Travis Etienne, James Robinson, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones. What are we doing?
Man, I think this is a team where they're going to win game one. I think they're going to beat Washington.
Okay.
Now, I have a little bit of bias.
They're less than field goal dogs. So, yeah, that's a fine take.
This is a similar situation to last year where the Jaguars were playing the Texans in week one, Trevor Lawrence's first game as a pro. And we kept talking it up all week. This is a very interesting situation because the Jaguars aren't projected to win a whole lot of games, but they're favorites heading into week one. And we're talking about it kind of the same way with Washington. This isn't going to happen all year. They don't have a high projected win total, but they're favorites at home in week one. I think they're just a bad team who are playing a Jaguars team that no one has confidence in. I'm actually thinking of stacking some Jaguars up. The projections don't like it. The expected value isn't great, but I think Lawrence and Kirk is an interesting large field GPP stack this week.
All right.
Why not Travis Etienne? He's a talented player. And James Robinson, they say he's going to be ready to go, but when they say he wouldn't rule out giving James Robinson a full workload, that means my touch projection for Robinson is like 5 to 8 touches. Like, they just want to get him run.
Yeah.
Etienne's the man.
Yeah, look, Etienne definitely is the archetype of player that can blow up that can do huge things on a slate for sure. I'm not huge on him this week. I get it though. I could see why, some stacks for Jacksonville could make sense. I had a dream last night that the Commanders won this game 3-0. I'm just remembering this now. I swear to God,
that would be the worst DFS game. And Clayton in chat was clearly with you there. This is where hope goes to die for someone.
Yeah, exactly. I really did 3-0, but that will not be the case. I don't hate Gibson on the other side. We already saw that Ron Rivera said he's going to be getting the ball. He's the number one, 5,800 as a slight home favorite. Should be a close game. Could see a lot, a run heavy approach from Washington. Gibson had a lot of games where he was a ghost last year, but he also had a decent amount of big games as well. So he's someone that I really don't hate this week now that Brian Robinson's not going to play.
Yep, he's got the volume. McKissick will still be involved. McKissick was always going to be involved. And so his projection compared to a 5,100 salary-based expectation is going to look better than a player like Gibson who's up at 5,800. But he's definitely in the you can play him range. Again, he is a home favorite on a team that isn't expected to be a home favorite all that often. And the volume concerns, because of the situation, aren't there anymore. Excuse me. I think he's obviously the most interesting option Gibson is on this team. I'm really not looking to stack up Carson Wentz and Terry McLaurin, but I actually would understand it if that's the way you wanted to play it. Again, this low total game, I think Jahan Dotson will be involved. Not my favorite, but still, if you look at optimal lineup percentage, McLaurin's in there about 6.5%, 7% of the time. And even Carson Wentz is in the optimal lineup 3% of the time this week.
No doubt. All right. Where are we going elsewhere with Washington, if anywhere?
Curtis Samuel, remember him?
Yeah, I don't want to, but
honestly, I think Jahan Dotson maybe becomes a thing earlier rather than later. And right now, that's the way our projections are playing it, which I kind of like that we're taking a stand there. We got him at wide receiver 44, which doesn't sound that exciting, except for the fact that he's 3,400. He's essentially free. That's technically wide receiver 72 in the salary-based rankings. He's a rookie. We have no idea what he's going to look like, but that one's kind of fun for me. Curtis Samuel at 4,200 is the other option. I'm probably out on a recently activated Logan Thomas at 3,200.
Okay. I think we can move on from this one, right?
Yep.
All right, let's keep going. Giants and Tennessee. We already talked about Saquon Barkley. He's getting a lot of ownership. I do like him this week at 6,100. I mean, when you look at the running backs, I've said it all week, that are behind them on the depth chart, it's definitely not one of those spots that concern you that the volume won't be there from Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell. Like, this is not a team that is going to have any semblance of a timeshare in the backfield. It's a matter of, are you going to stay healthy? And in week one in DFS, we don't really have to worry about that. So he is going to be popular. I think come Sunday, him and Najee Harris will be a little bit closer in ownership, but I do like Barkley this week. I don't like anybody else in the passing game. And I feel like you'll probably have some disagreements with me on this. I just don't really feel like trying to guess who it's going to be when I could rather guess between Aaron Rodgers wide receivers, or I could guess between Patrick Mahomes tertiary options. Yeah, if you hit on one of these guys and it ends up being like Wan'Dale Robinson, you're going to get him at no ownership, or Kenny Galladay, who maybe someone can exhume from the grave and bring back to life. But aside from that, Kadarius Toney, of course, but what's the real upside here in this spot for the passing game for the Giants?
Like very little.
Yeah, because Kadarius Toney is getting ownership.
And I kind of get it, because on a targets per route run basis, Kadarius Toney got targeted last year in limited playing time like he was a future superstar. You could see it on the field. He broke a ton of tackles. His elusive rate was really high. But Tennessee, from a defensive standpoint, literally exactly at league average in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses. So we should just look at this offense on its merits, which it doesn't have a ton of. It's below average in capability. I'm excited for the scheme change. I'm hoping that Saquon Barkley can stay healthy. I love the talent of the player. And I feel the same way about Kadarius Toney. But I don't think they're in a great situation. I think the Vegas odds are essentially right on with this team. And them exceeding expectations happens, I don't know, like 4 to 5% of the times if you were to play out this game over and over percent. I don't need to stack up Daniel Jones and one of these receivers. I don't need to. I get why Saquon Barkley is a value at running back 15 in salary on DraftKings, but this is one of those teams where I just don't really need to get there on a huge slate like this.
Pretty much how I feel. It's a massive slate. And yeah, maybe Brian Daboll, I know you feel good about him. Maybe he could definitely be the guy that turns this team around. I'm not saying it's impossible, but do I think it's a necessity that we get to them this week? I really don't. Do you think that we should be getting to Derrick Henry or Robert Woods, or should we be looking potentially at saying, what about Treylon Burks? This guy, his price point sucks though for a guy who has so many question marks.
He's priced like he was going to be hyped.
Yes.
Is what happened. And now I kind of like him because no one's going to play him. No one is going to play him in tournaments because he's a little too expensive. His salary is a little too high. But his chance of succeeding his underlying chance hasn't changed at all. He's still going to be the second option on a team that is a touchdown favorite at home. It's not the best game environment of the week. It's not the most likely option for his team, but we're not talking about an off the wall, throw a complete dart option either. This player was drafted to replace AJ Brown, and they still have high expectations for him. Derrick Henry and Robert Woods at their respective salaries. I like Derrick Henry better. Robert Woods is fine at wide receiver 21, 5,600, but Derrick Henry at 8,600. Honestly, if you're just like looking to gobble up a ton of opportunity value, can't really go wrong with Derrick Henry. His leverage and his optimal lineup percent are right at his projected ownership. There's just like not many holes to poke here. If you got the salary to get up to 8,600, Derrick Henry, go for
it. Chris Carnahan, my dreams be like, you want to lose all your teeth tonight or go back to high school. I actually had those. I have multiple of those. I have odd dreams. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I have, dude, the losing the teeth dreams where you go like this and it just starts to come out. Oh, you never had one of those? Never had a losing the teeth dream?
Oh, are you kidding me? Apparently it's people like the dream interpreter, crew thinks that it's like you're losing power.
And you're unprepared, I've heard.
Yeah, you're you have loss of control.
Yeah, not fun. I think I had a dream that I had to hide a body as well. And
that sounds kind of fun.
That's scary.
Oh, it was like real.
Oh yeah, like cover it up. One of those things where like something went wrong, but horrifying. And then I actually heard somebody say this the other week, and I thought, my God, I've had the same thing where you're like, oh, I'm going to prison. It's over. I'm going to jail. And those dreams are real, right? They feel real. And then you wake up, you look around and you're like, Nope. I'm going downstairs and pouring a cup of coffee.
You thank goodness, like when you have those kinds of dreams, the emotion of it all dissipates, at least for me, fairly quickly. You're like, oh, I'm good. Normal life.
Yeah.
Let me get on with it.
Scary though, man. You have those dreams where you're in trouble or you're going to be in trouble. Not fun. All right. 3 to go. Buckle down. New Orleans and Atlanta. Do we have any? It seems like Michael Thomas actually might not play now.
Yeah, he's like hampered to the point where I might just be done with this guy. I might just be done. And Jarvis Landry's probably going to eat over the middle for this team. I think Chris Olave is probably a fine play at 4,500. I think if Thomas doesn't play, the projected ownership, we currently have him at 1.6% for Olave. That won't be the same. Beyond that, gross. Obviously, you're playing Kamara at 7,600. He's a good slight downgrade in salary, but the projection's just the same. I don't think I need to get to Jameis as a stack. This is actually a pretty easy team if Thomas doesn't play. Landry, good one-off. Olave, even better one-off. In fact, he'll probably get touted to the point where he becomes a bad one-off. Kamara, all systems go.
That's how I am too. Carlos, you're a nut job, dude. Listening to nightmare-inducing audio on YouTube to fall asleep. You're nuts. And
what?
Yeah, nuts. Kickstart said he had a dream last night that him and Nick Lepre were drug smugglers. Weirdest dream in a while. He said, that's awesome. All right, let's get through this. One more. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. We still got almost 400 people watching. Subscribe to the channel. Help us out here. And again, Scramble gets you $7, 7 days for $7, $1 a day. Every single tool on the site. Football season's here, baby. I mean, Matt Kajeski and I just did the Showdown strategy show for tonight. Bills and Rams. We're in business. We're back. We're officially back. So let's make it happen. Yeah, let's do it the right way. All right. Atlanta. Drake London seems legitimately questionable as well. I'm very much out on the Falcons this week, other than maybe some Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I'm out on the Falcons too, because I don't think Cordero Patterson has this backfield locked up. So why do you want an RBBC on a team that is a pretty strong underdog?
He's not that cheap either.
Yeah, so I'm kind of out there. Kyle Pitts will be fun. Kyle Pitts is the laziest take to have a breakout season in all of the fantasy industry. So to say that I think Kyle Pitts will be good this year is like breathing air. At this point, that's pretty much a given. Saying that he won't succeed would be rarer. I'm not going there. The New Orleans defense is good, one of the best in the league in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses last year, 4th best to be exact. But it's still not a situation where I will go away from him. He's in the optimal lineup 11 to 15% of the time we're seeing in our latest run of simulations. The tertiary option I would take if I'm just going to play this in GPPs, Alameda Zaccheaus. The projections don't look particularly great. I just think he's going to be on the field all the time. He's healthier than Drake London. He's played more games than Drake London. I don't believe in Bryan Edwards. So if you want an off-the-wall play for the Falcons, that's where I'm going this week.
Okay. Yeah, with the Saints, I just think Winston's going to have all the time in the world in the pocket all the time in the world. I really do. So someone's going off there. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone's going off. I like the Saints, man. Laying 5.5 on the road kind of sucks, but I like the Saints minus 5.5 too against the Atlanta Falcons. Cleveland and Carolina. Jacoby Brissett, no Deshaun Watson. You guys heard about what happened, right? No Deshaun Watson. That means that we're going to have a bunch of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and I guess Amari Cooper. I don't know. I want nothing to do with this passing game. Bell and Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper this week. I'm good on that. I'm picking spots. I know you can spray, when you got a lot of lineups, but still, I can't imagine this is going to be a spot that I tackle all that much.
Cleveland is not in a great position to be a fantasy successful offense. I think Amari Cooper could end up being a player who averages like 11 targets a game easily on this team that just has no target competition, but he's kind of priced in a way that I don't have to get to him this week. I just don't have to get there. The Carolina defense certainly doesn't scare me. The matchup isn't that bad, but the offense itself isn't that exciting. Nick Chubb is a player I will take a chance or two on. If I'm building 20 lineups, I'll probably have him in one or two. I'll probably have Cooper in one. On the Carolina side, though, I do think that there are some clear values that I am excited to get to, which means that if I'm starting to build out and I want to turn them into a little bit stronger stacks and go with some Cleveland run backs, I'll just use them as one-offs in that situation.
Who are the values for Carolina that you're looking at?
Well, first of all, Christian McCaffrey is a value, period. I think his ownership is actually too low. Right now, it's just at 17%. I think his salary is too low at $8,500. I think we're going to see the same old Christian McCaffrey. He's my number one running back on the week in my personal rankings. Projections have him below Jonathan Taylor this week. I think he succeeds in just so many ways, and the touchdown upside is higher with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. DJ Moore has a projection ahead of salary-based expectations, and so I think the two of them, even just a McCaffrey-Moore stack, I have room for that this week. 8,500 and 6K for Moore. I'm very, very interested in that. Maybe it's the revenge game narrative getting ahead of me, but I think these two could succeed. And I don't necessarily need Mayfield, but I don't mind adding him either to that group.
All right. So not as much a stacking situation for you as much as it is just some one-offs for Carolina?
I wouldn't be opposed to playing just McCaffrey and Moore because they're going to have a significant amount of the opportunity value from that team every single week.
All of you guys who are sticking with us through this long show, look, the marathon show, we do what we can. Make it so this is what you need. You know, you take notes, do it however you please. But if you don't have time throughout the week, we're here for you. We're here. All hour and 45 minutes of it, we're here. And boy, it took a while to get to San Francisco and Chicago, but we're here. 40.5 point total. Actually like the over in this game. 40.5 points is not a lot. Of course, the weather is playing a role, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be as bad as everyone's saying. We're still a little wild out, so we'll see. But Matt, you know, we keep hearing about the weather in this game, right? And I think, yeah, there's going to be some rain and all that stuff. But if I recall correctly, let me just check one more time to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn here. Yeah, the winds aren't supposed to be that bad.
Under 10 miles an hour. So if the rain isn't super heavy, these teams aren't going to change their game plan drastically because of weather.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's also interesting that George Kittle seems like a legitimate question mark now. Groin injury at practice. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Kittle doesn't play. And let me just tell you, if he doesn't, Deebo Samuel, I already think Deebo Samuel's fine because nobody ever wants to play this guy. But if Kittle's out and Deebo Samuel ownership doesn't come up as high as it should because of weather or whatever, or low total, I mean, my God, dude, 2.8% ownership right now. I know you'll disagree with this, but.
No, you got to go for it. The superstar status is there for him. Like, I don't know if the rushing efficiency is going to work or the fact that the San Francisco 49ers team might pass more, or Deebo Samuel might just be good enough to make it happen in fantasy football, especially against a Bears defense that scares exactly nobody. And George Kittle, I think even if he does play, I think you're at the point where you're limiting his snap share, period. It's a long season. You don't need George Kittle against the Bears week 1. You need George Kittle week 17, 18 in the playoffs, hopefully. And so I do think you're at the point where Deebo Samuel is a fine value. You're going to see his ownership increase, even if Kittle trends towards playing. Ayuk is a fine DFS play. I've been trying to take people away from that on the fantasy side, though. I don't think you have to play Ayuk this week. And Lance is kind of an interesting enigma, right? Because he's 6K, certainly playable. This is the 9th highest quarterback in salary, but its projection, the median isn't that great. The ceiling is still so high. It's like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts level high. And it's going to be like this for all the positive matchups we have this year. I'm going to take shots. I suggest you do too, but the numbers look so for honestly all of these players, our current run of projections.
Yeah, it's not great. Neither was Chicago. I would much rather roster San Francisco players than Chicago players this week. I can tell you that much. I mean, who do you want to play from the Bears?
The opportunity floor for David Montgomery is very high, but it's not a fun floor. Like it's like 17 touches on the worst or lowest total team of the week. Does that get anyone really, really excited? Could he fall into the end zone twice and break away on one huge run? I mean, that's possible, but I think that's happening like 1 to 3 times if you play this game out 100 times. Darnell Mooney doesn't excite me either at 5,700. I think he's only a so-so play. Justin Fields, man, I wish he were lower salary. I was surprised to see him up at 5,600. We have him at QB 22 on this slate. We have him way towards the bottom, like almost in the unplayable range. The only one who is a value technically, Cole Kmet. And I think you're really grasping at straws.
Well, that'll do it. Woo. Matt's a draftaholic on Twitter. I'm at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Steven said Cole Kmet as a cheap option. He could do, but I would rather just go, like I said, a Hayden Hurst or a team that has a high implied total that, can competently throw the football, but I get it. Anyway, 13 up, 13 down, as Chronic Smith said. You guys are the best, man. Appreciate you hanging out. Thanks to Mike for producing this show. We'll see you back here next week, but tomorrow we got it all going. Again, Saturday, then like a 48-hour live stream, fitting all 48 hours into one day on Sunday. We got you covered. And fantasy football channel, Stokastic Fantasy Football and Odd Shopper. You guys betting, getting into some football. I mean, we got you through thick and thin, through all of it. Same with fantasy. So thanks, guys. We'll catch you back here next time. Peace.
See ya.